All right. So we're doing a journey story with Joanna Spotts. And I like to think about these journey stories as being able to hear from people who are in the field about how they got to where they are, because I love to be inspired myself and to hear people's backgrounds. And I know that for nature inspired teachers, it really is a journey. And so these, I think, are just a great way to kind of get to know our community and to be inspired. So, Joanna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I am Dr. Joanna Spotts, and and I have been with. Can I say the name of my program?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I've been with First Roots Wild Roots in Hinesburg for 5 years. So I started there before they were called First Roots Wild Roots. They were called something different. And I do a lot of things. Um, I do the teaching strategies goal. I'm a coordinator for that. I also am a support teacher, and I've recently taken on some of the HR duties, a lot of just the kind of the administrative and things like that. But I've been there, like I said, for 5 years, and I really enjoy it. It's a really great place to work.
Awesome. So, First Roots, Wild Roots, one of the unique things about your program is that it was a more traditional program that shifted into being a nature-based program. And so can you kind of describe that journey that your program has gone through?
Sure. So my program has been around in name and buildings for about 30 years. It has had several generations of owners, and our most recent owners, the Sandbrooks, they've had it for about 10 years. And when I started 5 years ago, oh my gosh, timeline is probably crazy here. We were just a Reggio inspired, and Reggio inspired really has a lot of nature in it, just because of what that is and what that means. So, and we were, emergent curriculum and encouraged to be outside as much as possible. I actually started in January of that year, and my very first day it was like minus 22 degrees. And we like made it some relay race to like run out the door and tag a pole and run back in just so we could get the kids outside a little bit my very first day. So it was a little bit crazy. So that was kind of the focus for the first like year and a half that I was there. And then we noticed that in the summers we were, outside, and we were trying to figure out ways to like, how can we do everything outside? And and we were beginning to notice that we were much more comfortable as teachers outside, digging in the dirt and looking up worms and having worm races and all sorts of things like that. And the Natural Start Conference came along, and Andrea was like, hey, if we want to try this nature-based thing, I think we should go full force and go to this conference and learn about it. And also in the fall, we had Rusty Keeler come to talk to us about outdoor play spaces, because our playground equipment is as old as the business. And it's kind of, not, it's all safe, but it's 30 years old, and we've got 4-year-olds playing on it, and like Splinter Patrol is a thing. So, we were all this creating yes spaces and starting to get deeper and deeper. So we went to the conference, and we came back, and we were gung-ho, and we couldn't wait to just figure it all out and do it all. So that was kind of the start, but really the big push was COVID. We were closed. When we opened back up, the best place to be was outside. And so we literally went from, we're outside for 3 or 4 hours at a time to being outside for everything but rest. So it really kind of forced us to take another look at what we were doing and redo our pedagogy. And, some teachers are more into it than others, but, I'm as a support teacher, I'm always like, let's go outside. Can we go outside? Come on. Why are we still inside? So, and winter is difficult in Vermont. The whole like getting dressed thing, but every day is an adventure. Every day is a challenge. It's never the same thing twice. So,
Yeah.
we really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I know I got to come and work with your team back in October, and we were really when I was there, we were really thinking about winter and how to make it work. And so I think having what's unique is like you've your program has been on this journey. I think individual teachers have kind of been on this journey and how they bring nature into their class, bring it inside as well as you all being outside a lot. But I think one of the unique things that when you're working as a team and trying to figure out like how do we make it work and how do we you know still be able to do our assessment, and it's unique is that you have this role at your program as the teaching strategies gold coordinator. And so I think sometimes people feel like you're either doing state assessment kinds of things or doing nature based, and what's neat is like you have really been able to do both. And so how can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how do you make that work?
Well, I just take my observations outside. you
Okay,
know,
moving on.
so because we started as emergent, and I am actually kind of like, if you go back to in my own journey to becoming, journey to getting the doctorate, I started as a bachelor's degree. I'm trained theme based.
Mhm.
When I went to school in Michigan, and at that time they were just starting their 4-year-old preschool. They call it the Michigan School Readiness Program. It's now called Great Start, I think. And I was in that those programs had to be theme based. That was the directive. So that's what I was trained in. So going from theme based to emergent was a learning curve, and then going from emergent to nature based was a learning curve. But it was less of a learning curve because emergent is kind of just like, well, so maybe now instead of writing our letters on a piece of paper, today I was outside with the group, the snow was starting to melt, and someone was like, oh, look, it's a D. It's a D. I have a D in my name, because the footprint had melted and it did look like a D. So that's right there. That's an observation. And TSG is about taking observations of the children and then putting them into their domains and that sort of thing. So I was just able to take a quick note, and then I'll go back and enter them and rate it. So it's just kind of a way of, I guess, my paradigm has to shift.
Mhm.
Not so much the kiddos, but how I feel about an observation that I make, and how I record it and put it in the process. That's what's changed.
Mm.
That's what's different. Not necessarily what we do with the kids.
Right.
And there are plenty of opportunities. Like I generally think about, outside. So I see more social emotional, more cognitive outside. Maybe I see a little bit more of the academic skills, the literacy, the math inside. But, there are lots of teachers who are very good at, you talk about bringing the inside in. So here's this basket of pine cones. We're going to categorize them. We're going to put them in order. We're going to put the biggest ones over here and the smallest ones over there. And, all those kinds of things. A teacher used pine cones and Play-Doh, and they decided to go through which ones do we think we can clean easily, which ones do we think we need to maybe go put back outside, and see and let the nature take care of. So, that's as doing the assessments, I think that instead of setting up the activity, I need to reframe what I'm doing. What am I watching? What skills are they doing? I have to find that and put that in. So, and that's been a 4-year journey. I don't know that I've always thought that. Maybe a more recent light bulb that went on. But, my whole philosophy is I just live for the light bulb moment. So if I get one, if the kid gets one, either way, it's good.
That's funny. Yeah, and I do think that it is a journey, and I think that it takes time. And so one of the conversations that I feel like is coming up is how to, embrace it as a journey and just continue. It's like, I think as educators, we're all lifelong learners. And those of us who are like, oh yeah, I want to just keep getting better, or, keep giving more of that ownership back to the children is really important. And I want to segue into really this work that you've done in earning your PhD and becoming Dr. Joanna Spotts. What was your topic in that, and how does that show up in your practice?
Well, first, I have an EDD. I
Oh,
have an
excuse me,
educational doctorate.
EDD.
Well, it's really not that big of a deal. However, I chose the EDD because it's practice based,
Mhm.
and that's what was important to me. This is my practice. So my dissertation was on risky play. Is that what you're getting to?
Yes.
And I really wanted to figure out why it took me 20 years as an educator to know that this kind of play was normal, natural, gonna happen, and it's the adults that are the ones who've labeled it risky. I always joke, risky play is the play that makes you like cringe and oh my gosh, but we need to get away from that. And I also wanted to figure out why every program didn't have risky play. Why is it just generally in the United States more of a nature-based phenomenon? So that was too wide and too broad. So I had to narrow it down. I had to also explain very carefully to my chair what risky play was because she was freaking out. They're never going to let you do this. And really, I learned a ton of different things. I learned that the reason it took me until all this time to learn about risky play is because the seminal research wasn't published until 2007. So I got a little bit of and then it comes out of Scandinavia. So things take a while to get to the United States from Scandinavia. And it's a nature-based thing because that's where the most risk is outside. That's where we climb trees. That's where we roll down hills. That's where we build campfires. That's where we use saws and hammers. But that was in the research. So I started talking to preschool teachers who use risky play, and I kind of I asked them, I did interviews, and we asked them, what is risky play to you? How do you balance safety and risk? Because the number one barrier is that people are afraid of kids getting hurt, which I get, and we should be worried about kids getting hurt. But we also have to realize that, and this is the quote from my research, I'd rather have a 4-year-old climb a tree than a 16-year-old figuring out risk behind a steering wheel. So I learned a lot about different ideas of risky play, how people find out about risky play. It really comes down to attitude. If you have an open mind and you're willing to explore and do something new and challenge yourself, then risky play is going to go well for you. But if you're going to close off your ideas, not be willing to grow, have a fixed mindset, you're pretty much going to stay where you are, shouting no and be careful.
Yeah. And I think I like to think too is like when there's a lot of work to do in our own, view of things. And I find that the challenge often is you can begin to do that own work as yourself as an individual, but it's this conversation that you have with your co-teachers too, because if you've done the work and you are starting to embrace, things that maybe you didn't feel comfortable before, that's only one layer. Like you have to have, your whole team, I think, has to be doing that. So I guess I know that we don't have a date solid yet, but for those folks who are in the Nature Inspired Teacher Group, we'll certainly be sharing it there. But we're looking at doing a risky play workshop. Can you kind of describe what the focus of that will be? And I think, tell us a little bit about what that might look like.
One of the themes that surprised me a lot when I was writing my dissertation was the conversations and relationships that teachers were using and building with their students really help their students be safer and really kind of honed in on their risk management skills. So kind of like knowing when this is a risk and if this is a risk I can handle. And I'm not so surprised why, or not, I always wonder like why I was so surprised by that. Cause I remember being in school and someone saying, teaching is all about building relationships. So why that was a surprise to me, I don't know. But so I really, the focus of this one is going to kind of be not only, this is what risky play is, this is, what we're doing, but we're going to go beyond just letting kids climb trees and jump off boulders. We're going to talk about how do you talk to a child about, oh, I see you climb on this boulder. Are you thinking of jumping down? So you're going to start the conversation and you're going to be able to, rather than saying, be careful when you jump, you can say things like, oh, did you look around and decide if this is a good surface to jump onto? Is it grass? Is it gravel? Is it cement? Did you check for friends underneath you? That sort of thing. And, I've done that before, and I've actually had like a 10-minute conversation with kids at the top of the boulder, and it turned out to be a talk about how they were now taller than me, but when they get down, I'll be taller than them, but I still won't be as tall as their dad. Maybe if I climbed on the boulder, I'd be as tall as dad. And we got into this whole conversation about what it means to be tall and what is tall. And she ended up jumping, and it was safe and fun. But, now every time I see her, she says, oh, can I get a chair so I can be as tall as you? So we've made a connection, and I'm not her classroom teacher. I don't see her every day, but we now have a connection. And I think that is something that, talking about risky play, she was safer when she jumped. And now we have a connection. And I think too, next time she wants to do something risky and I'm around, she might be more comfortable asking me questions and asking for help and assistance rather than just making a rash choice. So I think that's kind of where we're going to go with that. And I'm really excited to talk about my research, and I hope that it just opens up some minds and it inspires people to try new things.
Awesome. That's great. And we're recording this, and I'm going to upload it, and I'll share a link to your blog as well. And do you want to just say what the address is for your blog?
Yes, it's called Spotlight on Early Learning. And so you do the HTTPS and the colon and the slashes and the W's, and then it's just all one word, Spotlight on Early Learning.blog, BLOG. And and it's not spots like my last name. It is the word spotlight. And I hope to stop by, and it's a work in progress. So please, there's a comment section, so I can never find it, but if you can find it, you have a suggestion or an idea for how to make the blog work better for you, please let me know. I'm always open for suggestions.
Awesome. And I think it's a really good model of that whole thing of it's a journey, and part of getting started and, sharing these things that we're learning is feeling comfortable to, put a blog out there and not know where the comment section is. But one day you'll be like, that's so silly. Of course I know where the comment section is. But I'm so glad that you're here. We got to do this today, and later this spring, we'll do a risky play training that we'll share out in the Nature Inspired Teacher group. And just thanks so much for the work that you're doing. I think it's awesome, and it's great to connect with you. So
thank you. You're welcome. And thank you for your contributions as well.
Oh, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.